Hello there, friends, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to another episode of The Encouraging Word. My name is Paul Bennett. I'm here with Stephen Young. Stephen.
Hi, everyone. Yo.
Yo. We are here as staff members at Rocky River United Methodist Church, and absolutely delighted to come back with another session of encouragement and digging into our faith and topics within. And we're going to continue this time, another episode for our series on apologetics and evangelism, really touching on the different ways that we can come alongside folks and kind of answer their questions, their concerns, their criticisms about our faith, hopefully with the understanding we always do so in an attitude and just a demeanor of love and warmth. Even if it does get dicey, even if it does get tense. But we've been taking each of our sessions a single question or criticism that somebody has about the Christian faith and addressing that, and we're going to continue that theme today. But before we get to that, let's start with our fit segment. What's going on in your life, Stephen?
Yeah, so I think that the rise of AI and how AI is getting better and better, especially when it comes to video, is actually a very terrifying thing, because you could start to watch these videos and you're very skeptical now, even of videos, when you used to not be as much. And it's funny, when I show my girls videos online, they're like, they're automatically, they're thinking like, oh, that's AI, oh, that's not AI. Like, that's their first thought is it AI or not?
So their generation is going to have a better way of deciding.
Right, or they're going to be very skeptical, which is probably a good thing, to be very skeptical of what you see online. Because I'm always telling them, like, because they'll see, like, one of the things I'm going to talk about here today, they'll see stuff like this and they're like, yeah, there's no way. So one of the things that AI has done is really, they're doing like all these like different podcasting, or they'll do different vlogging things. Like I talk about this Star Wars character who does this, like, it's AI, but he does this vlog about being a stormtrooper. And it's really funny. But the one I'm going to talk about today is another AI video, but it's AI dogs who do a podcast. And I thought that would be appropriate for our podcast.
It's not real? Are you sure? It's not real?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not real, yeah. But we are real. We are.
That's right.
If you're not watching this, we're not dogs, just to let you know.
Yes.
And
human, flesh and blood,
yes,
human beings.
Exactly.
Yes.
We are not AI. But there's a podcast with AI dogs, and it's just really funny. So what they'll do, they'll make a clip of it's not like a full podcast, it's like a 3-minute clip of these dogs on a podcast, and usually the golden retriever is the host dog, and he's like, and like, you'll see, like, so what they'll do, they'll have real videos of dogs, like a dog who will jump off the stairs or whatever, so they'll have like a real video of a dog doing something, and then they'll have the AI version of that dog, and he's kind of like talking about the clip. So like, you have the golden retriever. The golden retriever is like, he'll say like, roll that clip, and then they'll show the real life clip of the dog, and then they'll come back to the podcast, and then like that dog is sitting there in the podcast, and then the golden retriever is like, so what were you thinking when you were doing that? And then the dog's answering like, well, I was going down the stairs and I thought I better just jump down, so I went back up the stairs and then I jumped down. So like the dog is answering for the video, and it's just really, there's some that are just hilarious, like when they're talking.
Sort of podcast dogs mocking the real dogs for being like
silly and dumb,
belittling them for being like very dog-like when they're so much more refined.
Right. But they're sitting in a podcast and they're like, bro, why were you doing that? Why were you jumping off? So I just think it's just that some of them are really, really funny. But actually, too, when you start to watch a bunch of them, you start to see patterns that the AI is doing. You sort of say, okay, like, you can tell it's AI because they keep repeating the same-ish gist of things. But there's still a lot of funny ones. And that's what I mean with my girls, when they see, like that's AI, obviously. Or anything like outlandish, which also I think is a bad thing, too, is because when you see incredible things online, you're like, oh, that's AI. You don't assume it's real, so.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. More and more so as time goes on. Yeah, I'm thinking of just content for that podcast. I mean, there would be endless
Yeah.
opportunities. You know,
Tons,
why
right.
are you spinning in a circle 10 times
Yeah,
before you sit
yeah,
down?
that's
Why
stuff
are you
like
chasing
that.
your tail? Or
Right.
you know,
Right, they're really
yeah,
funny.
I could have fun writing that.
Yeah.
That'd be a lot of fun. Yep.
I have to send you some later.
Sounds good. So my fit is not quite as humorous, but it comes from the heart. I just thought I'd share that I'm on a fire pit streak. Maybe is that self-explanatory? Or?
Yeah, and you're talking
Okay.
about fire pits, not your pit, like fire pits, right?
Yes, exactly. Talking about actual fire pits. Yeah. I didn't know. You say the word fire, and a lot of times people start thinking you're talking about anything but what you're really talking about. But so in our backyard, we have just a real cheapo fire pit, and as far as I know, it's legal in Rocky River to have a little campfire. Where I grew up, you have to be cooking something, or else you can't have an open flame. But
Interesting.
so we've been enjoying that. This time of year is just fantastic because around about when it gets dark, even a little bit past that, the temps drop into the 60s or even below, and having a nice fire pit lean into, and I just love building fires. I like sitting around the fire, occasionally eating things that are cooked over the fire. It's lovely. So, just thought I might throw that out there. We've been doing 1 or 2 a week, and see if I can inspire others to do the same thing. And a shout out to the wonderful family, you know who you are, who gives us free firewood because we helped them clear their yard of trees that fell down after the tornado a year or two back. And they have so much firewood, they don't know what to do with it. But we've been enjoying our evenings out around the fire.
And I know off the record, Paul and I go back and forth because he loves the smoke of a fire pit, and I desperately want a smokeless fire pit because I don't mind the smell of smoke. I just don't like, because usually when you're doing the fire pit, right, it's like you're about to go to bed. It's like late at night. And then I have to like take a shower because I smell like smoke. Because if your sheets smell like smoke, and your pillow smells like smoke, and your pajamas smell like smoke, and your breath smells like smoke, and everything smells like smoke.
What better way to fall asleep than to the odor of fire? Smoke and like natural, just the aura of. Yes, it's like taking the fire to bed with you in a very safe and
very safe way.
Yeah, no, I love the smell of. The only thing I don't like is when the wind changes and it blows right in your face.
Yeah, exactly.
But aside from that, give me as much smoke smell as you want. I'll wear that cologne all week long.
I was gonna say we'll get you a cologne.
There you go.
Smoke cologne.
Yeah. So, what are we doing here? We're talking about these questions and concerns that people have in relation to our faith. And we've covered some good territory. And the one that we're going to more than likely wrap up with, we may return to this series in some form or another because we realize there's a lot of other questions or related topics that we could dive into. But the question or criticism we're going to address today, I'll choose to word as this. Folks who see Christians, or this really could apply to people of any religion, see that they use their religion as a crutch. Do you think that is self-explanatory? I'm going to keep asking that question.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It's, using religion as someone saying, like, you can't handle the problems in the world, so you got to make up some sort of divine story or divine person to fill in the gaps of something like that.
Yeah, kind of fabricating something that isn't real, because the understanding is that this individual, if they're not somebody who is religious or believes in any particular religion, their world revolves around science and logic and reason, and which those things are not antagonistic towards religion. As far as, like, from my standpoint, I think they weave themselves into religion quite well, especially within Christianity. But if you are opposed to religion, or it's just not your mindset, your worldview, then you are seeing science as the answer to everything, more than likely, and so there is no comforting answer to where do you go when you die. There's no comforting answer to why am I dealing with this horrible thing in my life. There's no comforting answer to where did I come from. There just is. There just is the answer, the very factual, scientific answer. And so they see others who are aligning with different religions as just kind of fabricating these kind of fantasies and ideas as warm fuzzies to make them feel better about these things, these
It's almost
gaps.
like a sign of like weakness, and a sign like you don't want to handle the tough questions. So
Yeah,
So,
exactly. So when you encounter somebody who has this criticism of religion or of Christianity, that perhaps you're just making this up, you're using religion as a crutch, how do you respond to that? So I was tasked with addressing that and kind of leading the conversation here. And my first instinct, I got to admit, was to try to come up with some sort of proof. Like, if somebody's critical towards my faith, I want to have evidence. I want to be able to just argue with them until I can beat them down and convince them, yes, this is real. Like this, I'm not just making this up. So,
right.
and I think that, and I'm going to share a few points of evidence that we can offer as Christians. And I do think it's important to have these in your toolbox. I think we need to be able to meet people in like a logical and factual and historical and scientific world, and be able to explain why we believe what we believe as much as possible from those perspectives. So that's where I started. So before I move beyond that, I'll just throw out a couple of things. And the best book, the best material I ever consumed that helped me with this was The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. Have you read that book?
Yeah, I think I've read the book, and for confirmation at the church we have a little pamphlet that is about the resurrection specifically, but it's written by him too. So I'm pretty familiar with him.
Yeah, he's kind of spun off and made like 10 other books about the case for this and that and this.
Case for like everything.
Case for the dinosaurs and who knows what he's written. But
case for a case.
Case for a case. Yes, I'm not going to try and process that in my head. I'm just going to move on.
Right.
So The Case for Christ, and some of these I've drawn from that, and others I've encountered other places. But what can we offer folks who are looking for evidence, or at least who we feel like we need to meet in that kind of airspace to talk about this? One is we can simply point out, and I'm not the best person to have this conversation. This is not my wheelhouse, but I think the creation evolution conversation can be meaningful, and I think I happen to be somebody who believes that obviously in creation, but I also think that aspects of evolution, as long as the person I'm talking to and I understand what I mean by that,
right.
I think that creation doesn't mean that evolution has not taken place. But I think having that conversation is important, to being able to have that conversation, and at the end of the day, to me, still being able to point out that evolution in and of itself cannot explain the origin of the world. Right. There are still huge gaps. And of course, others would disagree, and perhaps I wouldn't be able to convince them at the end of the day. And part of the point of why I'm going through these arguments is to say that yes, we can have these arguments, we can have these evidences, but the argument itself is not the be all end all. We're not going to convince people. So just that's a tell.
Right.
We're not gonna twist people's arm and break them down, but still important that we can meet them in this space. So creation evolution, I think, to be able to point out that there has to be a creator on some level, because not all of this stuff came out of nowhere.
Right.
I would say you can start to look at scripture and recognize that there's so much archaeological evidence and other historical evidence outside of the Bible itself that validates things that we read in scripture.
I think that's the big one for me, is that it's historical, it's not fictional. You can find the places. You've been to Israel, so you can see the places where Jesus walked and see the towns that they're talked about and the geographical locations, and even the Old Testament. Like, I love to go to the art museum, and like it's always really crazy when you go to the art museum and they'll say something about like the Philistines or some other ancient people group that you'll read in the Old Testament, and you'll see that name mentioned in the museums, and you're like, oh, like are real people. So
this isn't something that we just invented in the 20th century.
Right.
Not only is there evidence that dates back to the time period of these historical events, but throughout history, people have referenced it, people have treated it as if it is historical fact. So I think there's something to be said there.
Right.
And even going back to the time of Jesus, and recognizing that there were historians that were recording things about Jesus as an actual historical figure, as
Right.
a person that actually lived. The main historian from Jesus' time was named Josephus, and that's something that he spoke about quite a bit, was Jesus, made reference to Jesus and historical events surrounding him.
Right.
So I think that's important to recognize. And then in addition to that, you have eyewitness testimony that Jesus existed. You
Yeah.
have all these other people who he crossed paths with or did life with, who have since written their own narrative, their own historical accounts. And so I think, adding that to the pile of evidence is important. And then I don't know if you're familiar with the C.S. Lewis take on how do we wrestle with Jesus' identity, that he has to either be a liar, a lunatic, or what he says he is.
Right.
Yeah, and I won't take time to break that down, but from a very logical standpoint, I encourage you to look that up and wrestle with that. But ultimately, those are the three options, and I think most people, when they wrestle with that and understand where that argument's coming from, they'll land on Jesus' true identity as Messiah. And then, as you referenced, just so much evidence around the resurrection and pointing back to the cross.
Right.
Because you could acknowledge that Jesus was a historical figure, but still wrestle with, was he the Messiah? Did he work these miracles? Did he raise himself from the dead? And the evidence for the resurrection is abundant. So you got the appearances that he made afterwards that were documented by other people. You have the followers of Jesus who went on, after the resurrection to devote their entire lives to going out and spreading the message and the story of Jesus, who he was as a person, and the fact that, yes, he did die on a cross, and yes, he was raised from the dead. And you have a bunch of dudes that are out there spreading this message, and ultimately, most of them being martyred for speaking it boldly to people that didn't want to hear it. So people literally spent their lives and gave their lives to validate the resurrection.
Right.
And then you see the church taking off. People believed it. There was enough evidence at that time, and people were sold on following Jesus as their Messiah. So a ton of evidence.
Yeah.
But like I hinted at before, I don't think that being able to throw evidence in somebody's face is ultimately going to accomplish what we want to accomplish. So you come back to the question, is Christianity a crutch? So I'm getting back to my thought process in wrestling with this, and initially I wanted to prove that it is true. I wanted to come up with all this evidence, and then I started thinking about that question, is Christianity a crutch? And maybe this will throw you for a loop even, but on some level, I think I would look at somebody who says that, and I would say yes. I would say, actually, I agree with you. Christianity is a crutch. It just happens to be an authentic, functioning crutch. Because apart from our faith, we are helpless. We are lost. So if you want to call it a crutch, by all means, call it a crutch. It's just a crutch that was given us by our Creator, and hand delivered by Jesus Himself, our God in human flesh. And it is our get out of jail free card. It is our ticket to eternal life. So is it a crutch? Yes, but it's not something I fabricated because there's no other option, or because I'm depressed about the fact that without faith, my life is very terminal and short. No, it's a real historical event, historical characters, and points to a Creator God who had a plan for his people and has lived it out. So if I'm answering that criticism that somebody brings me, I'm going to say I embrace that, yes. And I think the last thing I'll say is that if you're having this conversation, again, you're not going to badger them and beat them down with evidence. You can meet them in that space for a while, but the most effective thing you're going to do is build a relationship with them, and you're going to show them Jesus. If they don't want to believe that Jesus is real, or if they want to think that you're fabricating Jesus and everything about him, The only way to get through to them is to give them an experience of God's love.
Right.
And that is so much more powerful than any amount of evidence, historical evidence, logical evidence.
Right.
And that, to me, that's the be-all, end-all. You build
Right.
a relationship with that person,
Right.
and you introduce them to Jesus simply by yourself being a vessel of his love and his grace.
Right. And I think I'll add in at the very end here is that I think, too, if you're going to use Crutch as a way to, like, you need to believe certain things to get through your day, I'm like, yeah, and so do you, and so does everyone else. Like, everyone has something that they believe that helps them function from day to day. Everyone lives by what they say is worldview, or everyone lives by a story or a narrative, or you place yourself in this creative story or narrative that gives credibility and gives life to what you're doing. Because I mean, a lot of times when people are feeling suicidal or having dark thoughts is when the narrative or the story they tell themselves is broken or shattered in some way, or like they lose purpose, they're willing to live, they lose that. So everyone has something that gives them that motivation to live and face the troubles of the day or even the joys. So yeah, I don't see it as a crush. I think it's just a way to answer the questions that we all may have.